My face currently feels like I've been run through by Tom Stewart.
Puts it to the top of the square. Oh, beautiful little fist in there by Dale. Crucial centimetre moments.
He definitely has a bit of the Belcho spirit. As I have a bit of the Belcho spirit.
Hello everyone and welcome to The Back Pocket, the only podcast that feels as long as a tribunal deliberation, but somehow even less entertaining. My name's Alistair, that's Jack, this is The Back Pocket. How you doing?
I'm good. I don't even have schnitz.
No schnitz, no snicks either.
No schnitz sticks, which is just half a schnitzel. Yeah, I'm good. We're here. If you've tuned in before, you know how this works. We'll jump straight into the votes. And if you haven't, we give 5 through to 1 votes for the best defenders of the week based on whether they're good or whether we felt like they were good.
Yeah, sometimes it's vibes. The last 2 weeks...
You know that one time that Sam Draper got 3 Brownlow votes for an 8 disposal, one goal game? That's like sometimes us with defenders. Sometimes it's the vibe of the thing.
Yeah, I think we gave Heath Chapman heaps of votes for that one spoil.
The spoil. You had to get votes for that spoil.
Anyway... last 2 weeks we've been doing 1, 2, 3 because there's been less games. We're back to full games, so we had to watch so much football.
And some really bad football.
And here we are. Jack, who's your number one? Who's your one vote?
My one vote this week is to Mitchell Hinge.
Hinge.
Who's had a couple of 1s and 2s and 3s.
Yeah,
maybe even had a 5. He's been alright this year.
Has he had a 5?
He had a pretty big game. They were really good against GWS, and you picked it.
I did.
You picked it.
Mm-hmm.
He had 31 disposals, 4 intercepts, 7 contested, 8 marks. One of those was an intercept. He had 3 spoils, 5 rebounds, 12 defensive half pressure acts, 622 metres gained, 5 score involvements and a score launch. I think he was a real big part of how they were able to score from the back half, which really broke GWS apart, I think. So, yeah, 1 vote, Mitchell Hinge.
It's a little concerning for GWS, but we'll get on to games later. My 1 vote goes to Ben Miller from the Richmond Football Club.
Yep, I thought he was really good. He's in my special mentions here.
He had 19.1 rating points, which
That's
is kind of
incredible.
crazy. He had 14 disposals, 8 of which were intercepts, 4 score involvements, and he had no losses from his 6 contested one-on-ones. Considering the quality of his opposition, that's pretty good. To go with that, he also had 11 spoils.
I thought Miller and Blight were both really good in that game, considering they were getting hammered inside 50.
They were solid.
Yeah. And I like Ben Miller anyway, so I'm happy to see him get a vote.
I know you do.
2 votes is to Nick Blakey, the Lizard. He had 32, 9 of those were intercepts, 8 contested, 10 marks, 2 of which were intercepts. He had 9 rebounds, 755 metres gained, 5 spoils as well, which is not his usual game, but was a big part of why he was able to help out of half back, and had 7 score involvements with 2 launches.
I've just realised I've forgotten about Nick Blakey.
It's all right.
He was written down in my pre-stuff, but I didn't transfer it over. So he's not getting a vote for me, but he should.
It's all right. Sometimes it happens. It's like a couple weeks ago with Jack Sinclair, you're like, oh yeah, that game was bad.
Sorry, Lizard. That one's my bad. You were on my radar because your last quarter was insane.
It was really, really good, yeah.
The loss must have just done you in. Let's just go with that. 2s? My 2's Harris Andrews from the Brisbane Lions.
Special mention for me, but really good game.
11 disposals, 7 intercepts, no contested losses, and 10 spoils. Leave it at that. Pretty good defenders game.
Yeah, he's having a great season. And anytime I see like an All-Australian team without him in it, I'm like...
There's too many key defenders to pick at the moment, I think.
I think he's the best balance between lockdown and rebound at the moment.
Maybe, yeah.
I'd have him and Wiedering as my main 2 and figure out the rest from there.
That's tough for me. I think Sam Collins has to be in there.
Oh, yeah, he's having a really good season. I think he's the highest rated defender this year.
As he is. Carry on. Who's your 3?
My 3 was to Josh Draper.
Okay, Josh Draper is my 4.
He's your 4? Yeah. What a game.
I'm sure you've got the stats.
Mostly for his final quarter heroics, but he had 14 disposals, half of which were intercepts, 6 of them were contested. He had 8 marks, 2 intercepts, 1 contested, 11 spoils, 4 rebounds, won 5 out of 6 of his one-on-ones.
Yep.
Had 5 defensive half pressure acts, 4 score involvements, 2 launches, and was robbed of the Rising Star this week. Will Graham Body of Work nomination. Draper was the best Rising Star nom for this week.
It's really hard to get a nom as a defender, it seems. So.
It is. He was amazing.
What else do you have to do against the best side in the comp?
Shocked when he was dropped. It felt like he was...
Josh.
Like that he called out the defenders for not being defensive enough and then dropped the one defender who does nothing but. And then came back in with a vengeance. He did such a good job on both McDonald and Amadi. He played on both of them throughout the day, mostly Amadi. But especially in that final term when Sydney were really coming at them, it felt like he was everywhere. So 4 for you, Josh Draper. 3 for me.
3 for you?
So who's
Jack's
your
on the board.
3 for me? Who's your 3?
My 3 is Nicholas Newman.
He was in my votes until the last minute. So totally understand him.
I had him out completely, and then I noticed one particular thing. But 28 disposals, 23 kicks, 706 metres gained, 14 marks, no one-on-one losses. I think he had 1 or 2 contests, 5 1%ers, and 10 score involvements.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus, from halfback.
What's really funny is I could have had those for you as well because I had them written down until I removed it from my votes. But yeah, he was awesome. And he has been for about 4 or 5 weeks. Last year, it was about the middle of the year. He clicked into gear. He seems to be doing it again. He's in real good form. So, since you've already done your 4...
sure, your turn.
I'll do 4 and 5 in a row, I guess.
Yeah.
My 4 was to Ryan, good old Mo Lester.
Oh, Mo Lester. Yep.
He was really good again. He had 19 disposals. He went 84. 12 of those 19 were intercepts. 6 were contested. He had 7 marks, 4 of which were intercepts. 3 spoils, 3 rebounds, 8 score involvements, and 5 launches again. He really seems to be who starts their chains down back, which is crazy because I did not see him as that guy until very recently. But the fact that he turned so many intercepts into scoring chains is really cool, and he's playing the best football of his career. So, Ryan Lester, my 5 votes is to Sam Collins.
Same.
Rock solid as always. He is the king of this podcast. Since day one, he's been just about our favourite.
Yeah, pretty much.
16 disposals at 87. 11 of those were intercepts and 9 contested. He won all 4 of his one-on-ones. He had 4 score involvements and 2 launches. He had 19 rating points for fullback.
Yeah. 0.1 less than Ben Miller, I just want to say. So.
And 12 spoils.
He loves to spoil.
Once again, we've gone heavy on the last quarter votes. Blakey, Draper, and Collins. Once again, Collins' last quarter, when Collingwood were really coming at them, was amazing. He was brilliant.
We've always done that. We've always done
that's
lost
when
quarter
defenders
bursts.
are important.
Awesome. So I'm glad we have the same one. It means less talking for me. So I will go through my honourable mentions really quick. Jacob Wiedering. No contested losses and was throwing opponents around like he was doing training. He looks in really good nick. Tom McDonald, 15 spoils.
Yeah, huge,
Looks
right?
pretty good. Rory Lobb had
line.
a game-high 5 intercept marks, but he won't be playing that quality
Not
of
a
opposition
career high, though.
every
weirdly.
week. Interesting.
He's had 7 intercept marks in the past. It was a career high 12 intercept disposals.
I did put down Liam Jones, and then I've just written Lobb had the easy job. Jones actually defended. And I have put down half honourable, half dishonourable. Jack Henry played half a good game of football.
Played half a good game of football.
Which is more than a half of a game that he would have played for the last
It's about
like
twice
2
as
months.
much good football as he's played in the game this year. I had Lewis Melican again. Thought he was really important. I had Rory Lobb also. Jacob Blight, really good debut. Learned the mystery of why he was in the 51. It's just that they had nothing under or above 18.
Just give him a low number.
And I thought Lawson Humphries on debut was worthy of a mention.
Yes, it didn't feel like a very defensive game, but he was good.
Yeah, I think he kind of, I was talking about it earlier, I think most of what his role was to swap with Stewart once the ball had gone forward of centre. So I think he was starting on half back and just becoming an extra wing effectively. Quick thoughts on the weekend's games. Brisbane, Melbourne.
2 seconds.
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm back. I had to laugh at Alex Neil-Bullen. It's so.
It was a real rugby try, wasn't it? Like it
Yeah.
was. We see them often, but that was the most exaggerated one.
I don't think
can
there's
remember.
a world there it was ever not getting paid. Could you imagine if it hadn't? We've already got an
Imagine if they'd paid the
umpire
trip
uproar,
instead.
but Jesus. Very lucky. If Brisbane had dropped one at the Gabba to Melbourne, that would have been huge for the ramifications of the
them
4
and
and the
Melbourne,
8. So huge for Brisbane to win.
A lot of upside for Melbourne, though, I think, is what I took away from that game as well.
Yeah.
They had a lot of kids in. The kids performed well.
They're playing West Coast and then Essendon. If they can win both of those, they can get their season back on track.
Yep. North Bulldogs.
Pretty poor from the Bulldogs, to be honest.
Bad game.
Yeah.
Bad game.
You'd expect the Bulldogs in the form they're in to be winning by more, but at least they kept the...
They still had a Bont 35 and 3 points, and then Trelaw got tagged because you can't tag Bont, so he had a bit of a quiet one. But other than that, I
keeping
guess
your opposition to 60, that's all you need to do.
lob down back was something they learned they can use.
Maybe. See how it goes against better opposition.
Suns Magpies.
Technically, the games went in a different order, but Suns Magpies, awesome. The
Really good game.
Gold Coast won. We all expected them to lose despite it being up north, and if they can roll that into another win this week, which they should, let's be real, they should, it would be a great platform for them to hopefully finally make finals.
We said these were some of the tests, and winning that was one of them.
Next is
that's
fronting
one
it
test.
up at
Was it like
Marvel.
95 they lost to Collingwood by at home last year after not losing one before that? So that's a bit of a hoodoo shaken. So that's cool. Geelong Bombers.
No comment. Move on.
Saints Port.
Ah,
No comment because
somehow even worse.
look, I got a lot of use out of my this man doesn't watch Ross Lyon meme
your
for
Jared
Jared
Waitley
Waitley
meme.
Because God, that was another Saints game you shouldn't have watched.
There seems to be, and I will talk about this later, there seems to be, it's either 50% good games, 50% bad games at the moment. That's what it feels like.
And that was a bad game.
A bad game.
Tigers Carlton.
Look, Tigers did really well with
They
their pressure, I thought.
Did what they could. Carlton just had two bursts at the end of the third and fourth quarters that was the margin.
Smacked them.
I thought for the most part Richmond tried their heart out. Their midfield just doesn't have the run with for teams with a big bodied, stronger midfield. Like obviously they've still got Taranto and players that they're running in there, but Hugo Ralph Smith's still a few years off being able to do stuff like that.
Hopper was playing, I think he had 25 touches, but I barely noticed him.
Yeah. So and the last game, West Coast Hawthorn
yeah, that's really poor.
moved straight into.
I'm going to quickly just say it's awesome for Hawthorn because if you have a team that is up on the rise like them, for them to go to their opposition's home ground and put them to the sword, super important. They could have won that by 20 points and no one would have talked about
a
it.
young team like Hawthorn to have that like really shaky, not shaky, but like they were dominant in the first half and just couldn't put them away, to come out in the second half and just fix everything that they were doing wrong in the first half and really put them to the sword, shows that they're in really good form.
You missed Sydney Freo and you missed
did I?
Adelaide GWS. You missed 2 games.
I've just not written them down. You're so right. We already talked about Adelaide GWS and Sydney Freo in our votes, and I somehow didn't have them in here.
Well,
So,
just leave them then.
no, Sydney Freo.
No, I don't want to talk about it now. The Giants been toppled, but
Happens to teams.
It
There's good
happens.
teams. We saw, when was that? Melbourne lost to Adelaide in their flag year, and Adelaide finished like second last. So
Geelong lost to St Kilda in their
Geelong-
flag year. Just
and-
ask your dad.
Dad wrote him off. I'll tell him something about that again today, because I said after the prelims in 2011, I was saying about how Dad said that you're just looking at the fact that Collingwood played that hard game against Hawthorn and Geelong belted West Coast, that Geelong should have better legs in the grand final, and they did. They ran it out. I said, though he also said Geelong had written off 2022 after St Kilda, so what does he know? And then Adelaide GWS.
Yeah, the scoreline does not show how accurately Adelaide dominated that game. I think it was something like 30 scoring shots to 15 or something like that. If GWS don't kick straight, they are decimated on that ground. So
When they get that balance right of Rankin mid forward,
scary.
he's
Don't like it.
terrifying. And yeah, he was at his best, rotating. It was about almost 50-50, I reckon, he played that game, and he was very good. And yeah, sorry, West Coast Hawthorn would have rolled perfectly into my pops and flops if I'd written all the games down, because flop number 1 was West Coast at full strength at home.
If we're doing flops number 1, I've said watching St Kilda and Port Adelaide
That
play.
was number 2.
My number 2 is still St Kilda based. I'm just ripping on them today. St Kilda sending Max King back on with a PCL and playing him in the ruck. I feel like when you've got a player of his caliber or importance to them, just like they should have with Petrarca earlier in the year and just like they should have with Doherty earlier in the year, triple check these things before sending someone back on the ground.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Because he's out for the rest of the season.
It might be the last game he plays for St Kilda.
They might not win a game.
You're right. Yeah,
Like, it's...
because even though he's not playing his best structurally, he makes so much difference up forward.
Yep, and that's not something you get with a Jack Hayes and Tim Embry is good, but he's past his prime. Let's be real.
Yeah.
And my last flop, I've just written down the AFL and umpiring,
I wrote
and
umpiring
that's
chat.
all I'm going to say about it.
Mostly because we should not be talking about umpiring on a Wednesday.
I'm over it.
It's too much.
We're recording this podcast on a Wednesday.
And people have still been talking about. Here we are. And people have still been talking about the umpiring. My pops were combo Josh Draper and Freo.
Yep, I've just written Fremantle, no Pierce, no problem.
Yep. Which is what he covered, so that makes sense. My second pop was my tipping. I've come from the ashes after last week saying you're only good if you know nothing about football. Now I'm good at tipping. I'm up to top or second in all my comps.
I'm second behind you in our comp, but I did come well from behind to do that.
I'd be cool if you had a phenomenal rest of the year so that you win that comp and get the prize money, but I get flights anywhere in Australia comp as well, so we both get a nice little...
I don't even remember when this started. I think I owed you $20 for something.
No, yeah, I owed you $25 for someone's birthday.
Yeah, that's right.
And then I was like, you want to buy in? You're like, yeah. I was like, sick. You don't even have to pay me for it because that is the buy-in. So you're
wicked.
in.
So hopefully I win something. That'd be nice. My second pop is... shocking. No one ever saw this coming. Orazio Fantasia.
He was amazing.
21.7 rating points. It's probably the best game he's played in like 5 years.
Since he was like third year Essendon, I reckon.
Wild. Hopefully, if he can keep that up, that'd be fantastic. But see if he can do it against someone who's not Richmond.
Richmond are the easiest team to score against. Hence me comfortably holding Hayden Young after last time. He's playing Richmond at home. My last pop was just a close ladder. It's the closest it's been to 13th from second, from third this late in the year.
Yeah.
Hawthorn are also the lowest any team has ever been on the ladder with a positive win-loss record.
That's crazy.
So that's like a double whammy for how close the ladder is. This year is almost definitely going to be what people were thinking last year was going to be with that late, tight shuffle at the end of the year.
And it was just two teams storming
It's basically unavoidable now that we're going to have some games at the end of the year. Port Freo, Geelong Freo will be 2 in a row in the last couple of weeks that matter.
Put them all on at the same time. Maybe not Port Freo and Geelong Freo, but
they're on
round 24, put every game on at the same time.
Every game that matters for that bottom half of the 8, play them all at once. I think that's been really good.
I'm just quickly my last pop sentiment was just Will Ashcroft playing.
Yes, he was great
really
too.
good.
He looked like he hadn't missed a beat.
Beautiful is his hair when it's bouncing. It is
He's
so
playing
magnificent.
for the right team.
He's got a mane.
It is a lion's mane.
Just when he jumps or bounces and his hair just goes with him, it's incredible.
What I reckon people imagined Achilles to look like.
100%.
Like he's got the golden hair, he's got the tan.
I just hope he doesn't have Achilles knees.
Like he is like everything you see the writings in Greek mythology about Achilles.
Seriously,
that's what he looks like.
Good kid.
Anyway, he's bloody good, and his brother's coming through next year. It's
so
funny that
great boy, great boys.
Got the first thing back.
Well, look, they're on an upward trajectory already. They're just losing picks now. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, now we're up to like pick 12. My other one, I can't be the only person who thinks the Darcy Moore chat is nuts. Like he's still playing fine. He just doesn't have the help he had. He's leading the comp for spoils. He's one of the best in the comp for one-on-ones. He's under a lot more pressure. There's a lot more ball going into that 50. And there's no Murphy.
It's difficult for him when he's teamed up with Frampton, who lost like every contested one-on-one he could, gave away like 7 goals or something. Like there's not much you can do about that.
Well, I made those like best and worst stats teams for like each position. Frampton is the worst key defender for one-on-ones in the comp. Moore is struggling because of the men around him.
I almost think they'd be better off with Kruger back there.
Yeah, I agree. Kruger showed a lot in defence in the VFL when he was still at Geelong, and that's why he moved to Collingwood because he wanted to play forward. So maybe that's why they're not doing it. But
Jeremy Howe never wanted to play defender ever again. But
yeah, and then he was almost all Australian defender a couple of times after that. But yeah, it is on. I did
laugh. Sorry, just a side note. Jeremy Howe was on AFL 360.
Yes,
and you know how it pops up their achievements? It's just like it just said Mark of the Year. That felt wrong. That felt bad.
That's rough. That's brutal. The bloke played with fucking pins in his arm. Freak. That should be what it is. Jeremy Howe played with plates in his arm that got infected. Also, ball tracking tech almost here, there again. Did you see that?
It's interesting because I saw you tweet about it, and you were like, "Oh, it doesn't. The going through the posts and stuff isn't what matters, but it does include."
I read the article. It does.
It does include.
I just think that's what they should have showed in the video, because the video showed the things we can already do.
Jeremy Howe's 34. Also, why show Mark of the Year 2012 when you could do AFL Premiership Player 2023? Or Harold Ball Memorial Trophy 2011?
What's that?
I don't know.
Please, Alistair, I would like to know what the Harold Ball Memorial Trophy is.
It's a Melbourne Football Club trophy for the best first-year player between 1933 and 2011.
Oh, okay. So you got the last one.
Best young player from 2012 onwards, named in honour of Harold Ball, who died in World War II. So there you go. He's got his Harold Ball Memorial Trophy.
Good for him.
If they put that at the bottom, I would have been straight to Google.
Yeah, that would have got me on. Well, then you wouldn't have been watching 360. You would have been on Google instead.
Probably for the best.
Because you would,
They're asking Jeremy how his hot takes on the umpiring. So
I was gonna say the duality of man with Robbo being like, oh, I can't believe these free kicks, and then Waitman's on the screen. He's like, do you think he's just ducking into it 80 meters off the ball? I think he's asking for it.
Oh, yeah. It'd be interesting to see how they all react today after Jordan Boyd got off, because Robbo was adamant
well,
he should
the
be
AFL said it was
suspended.
victim blaming.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see that. But not really at the same time.
Yeah, I was trying to... I didn't bother saying it to anyone. But, like, the reason that he got off, but also not completely, was that they still would have caught him high if McAuliffe hadn't done that. It just wouldn't have been as dangerous. Sorry, who was it? Mansell, sorry. It just wouldn't have been as dangerous if he hadn't done that. So, like, it just got downgraded because he still would have probably copped him a little bit high and it would have been a fine. That's why...
They just did everything they could to not set a precedent.
Yeah.
And it's weak.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's...
Ducking is not an acceptable option.
No. And the problem is that, like, they also can't do much with these head-high bumps contesting the ball when there's no actual damage, because they let Butters off with nothing. So any time it happens this year, they can just show footage of Butters.
Yeah.
So they've shot themselves in the foot once
Again.
Yeah.
It's the third year in a row.
Yeah. They let someone off early in the season, and which means later in the year, people are going to start getting away with it. So it's stupid.
Anyway, that's all the tribunal and umpire talk. There is
Yeah,
no
I don't
more
want
of
to do
that. I'm not
umpire
doing
talk
it.
because it's been the whole week of it and it's done. Next week, game of the week.
Pick
Gotta
any
be
of
Friday night,
pick
Collingwood.
any of the first 5 games. Go through them in order.
Collingwood Essendon,
Could be game of the week.
North Melbourne Gold Coast,
Could be game of the week.
Port Adelaide Bulldogs,
Could be game of the week.
Geelong Hawthorn,
Could be game of the week.
GW West Carlton,
Could be game of the week.
For sure
Now do
could.
the rest, the other 4.
Freo Richmond,
No.
Melbourne West Coast,
No.
St Kilda Sydney,
No.
Brisbane Adelaide.
Game of the week.
Got
No.
time slot.
Fuck off. Seriously, again, we're split right down the middle. Don't watch footy on Sunday.
I would not want to be St Kilda facing Sydney off a loss with no Max King. That seems like the worst predicament
They'll
you could
just
find
strangle
yourself
them.
in.
Ross will just strangle them.
Can you strangle St Kilda?
Sydney?
Yeah, Sydney.
I think you could.
Yeah. We'll see.
They'll give it a go.
I think it could be awful.
We've seen Gold Coast
but yeah,
score 160 this year, but St Kilda kept them to like 50.
And we just saw Port have been high scoring, winning and losing this year. And again, that game ended up being a strangle nothing.
Yeah,
so
I think they will absolutely do everything in their
it's
power
at
to strangle
Marvel
it.
where they managed to do that to teams. So who knows?
God, imagine if they beat them. That'd be crazy.
Amazing. St Kilda just sitting there having beaten Collingwood and Sydney.
Can you imagine Ross Lyon's face in that press conference?
Well, I would have loved someone to ask him, be like, well, so you went back to low scoring again this week, Ross, and you still didn't win. Are you doing candles or, like, what's the...
Balloons, I think, when they lose on us.
Okay,
small budget. They don't have
I
cake
believe
budget.
Dan Butler is still standing inside the 50 waving his arms at the umpire.
We're not doing umpire talk.
He looked so incredulous, it was so funny, and he was right, but he was just, like, climbing up like, what the... Anyway, did you have any notes this week?
I did all the things
There was a
that
bit-
you wanted
you-
me
you
to.
did,
I
yeah.
did pops
You
and
did pops and
flops. I
flops.
did game of the week.
You did do that.
You expect me to have more?
There was a bit going on this week, but, like, the news just hasn't shown any of it the last 3 days.
What has been going on? Gather rounds announced and prices are gouged
Oh, yeah,
Australia-wide.
No, WA still fine.
Oh, it is?
It's just the day of gather round that's up. The rest of the time around it's still okay.
Interesting. So they haven't fucked with the times back
Yet.
yet, but accommodation's going to be fucked regardless. And I think it's kind of fucked to book without
Knowing when your team's playing.
when your team's playing or even where. If you're getting
Yeah, I saw,
are you getting something in Barossa Valley? Is your team playing there? Who knows?
That's true. Yeah,
There's going to be a
It's
game
a
there.
45-odd minute drive up to Barossa, so you're probably not making that on game day.
Yeah,
I doubt the parking.
And
at
I
Barossa's
know
great.
people who tried to go to every game the first year, and that's obviously
If there
just
was
not gonna
ever
be
a year
possible.
for us to go, it was last year when Geelong and Carlton
Same
had the double
game.
header at
Yeah.
Adelaide Oval. Doubt that'll happen again. So.
Probably not.
But yeah, that was announced.
I don't remember what else happened this week.
No.
Seriously, I've completely lost it.
Yeah, no, me
Some
too.
big signings in Brisbane.
Yeah. It's true.
Jared Berry signed for like 80 years
He
or
did.
whatever.
I mean, best time to do it. He's in great form.
Charlie Cameron did as well,
Charlie
right?
Cameron.
Yeah.
That was just an extension, though.
Stengel signed.
Yeah. Every time someone's been mentioned as a free agency prospect, they've signed a 5 or more year deal.
So there's only a handful left. So
Yeah, Perryman to Port is still on, apparently.
Apparently Perryman's gone. If you're offering him $800K, there's no way he's staying at GWS.
I also think you shouldn't be offering him $800K, but that's a totally different
Harry
story.
Perryman is a player that you've barely heard of before this year. And the only reason you've heard of him is because people are offering him $800K.
Yeah, it just seems like another one where if you take him outside of a structure, I'm not sure he'll be the same player either. So I hope that Port can coach him as well as.
Oh, well, they've completely undone their structure by adding players who don't adhere to, I guess, what they were doing previous. So it's going to be interesting. I do worry about some of the list management at Port, but everything there's a bit of a shit show at the moment. So
Geelong have rocketed off of the bottom of the backline rankings over the last 3 weeks. They're now 4th last.
Ah, nice. I'm sure you're happy about that.
I thought it was funny. Yeah, I don't know. That's the best I can say about it.
I guess that's what happens when you win a game.
When you win a game, and also the other team doesn't score more than 2 goals after half-time. That helps.
Yeah, it does.
I don't think you can rely on Hawthorn doing the same thing.
It's going to be a fascinating game.
Yeah, Hawthorn haven't played in Geelong in front of a crowd in 16 years.
Really?
They played there during COVID when they weren't using the Melbourne grounds, when Geelong was being used a lot. But yeah, it might have been more than 16. Anyway, it's 8 flags between the two of them since the last time they played there.
That's crazy.
They've only played there 3 times this century. So
I think it'll be a learning curve because I experienced it watching my own team. First time Carlton played there in quite some time. They fucked up the coin toss, kicked into the wind, and got smacked because they didn't anticipate changes. So
you do notice, I feel like the interstate teams tend to go better there than the Victorian teams do because they play there every year.
Yeah.
Whereas the Victorian teams who only play there when they're not top 8.
I just think there's this brashness about the Hawks at the moment where there's every chance they can get this done.
They are...
And if they do, huge.
The most exciting team to watch play football at the moment.
I'd say, yeah.
Every time they play, it's fun. The West Coast game wasn't because it just sucked, but
it did suck.
When they play a team that is good, they're so fun to watch. And you think about if they'd won that Collingwood game and the Port game back to back, in which they probably should have won both.
They would be top 8.
Yeah, because they tried to park the bus against Port, and that was a terrible idea, and they learned from that. And then Collingwood was just a few Collingwood things happening late in that game like they do, and they would have been there. So I think Hawks are one to watch. I saw Jared Waitley had him in their his top 4 seedings. So.
Yeah. They're 4th, I think, in the seeding.
Which seems...
I don't understand those
They've got to
seedings.
make finals first.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, my seedings would be Sydney.
What has happened
Carlton,
that has made Jared Waitley go,
Brisbane.
yeah, Carlton are number 1 over Sydney?
Yeah, they just lost to them by 74 points.
It's pretty clearly...
2 weeks ago. It's still Sydney.
Sydney, Carlton, Freo and Brisbane in whichever order you want, and then Bulldogs outside of that.
Yeah, that's it for me. I think that's it. Yeah, so if you're doing top four without Sydney, it's those other 4. If it's top 4 with Sydney, it's Sydney, Carlton, Brisbane, Freo. If Bulldogs can manage to keep their shit together, they're definitely in there because their best is very good. But what they served up against Hawthorn and Essendon is not very good. So we'll see.
Mate, well, they kind of served up against North, wasn't even that
Yeah,
good,
no, you're right. Absolutely. So Bulldogs are a coin toss. And GWS are the same. GWS's best is so good, and their worst has been...
I don't think we've seen their best in a while, though.
Really bad. The way they played against Brisbane and Geelong, and there was another game around that patch where it was it looked like they were back. And then it just all fell apart so quickly afterwards. And it's just the Hawthorn Sydney games were pretty average for about half of the game each time. So you just wonder, they were so promising late last year, and they've still got all that talent on that list.
But they are dealing with a few injuries. Obviously, Sam Taylor's a
massive.
huge out.
Yeah.
They lose Josh Kelly this week. Cogs isn't there either, is he?
No, I don't think so.
I think that's a fair bit of experience they're missing. Obviously, they've got leaders around the ground, but not to the calibre of those 3.
Yeah. I mean, notice when Cogs was out earlier in the year how important he is to their side.
We've seen Tom Green's inability to beat other Bulls and also his issue with score involvements. So that probably doesn't
put him behind the ball.
Oh boy, that was so dreadful. I can't believe they did that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny.
He had 20 disposals that quarter, and they put him behind the ball.
Yes. After we talked about it last week, and me saying, why would you put Stewart in the midfield, in the forward line when you could have put him in the midfield like you were threatening to all pre-season?
And then they did
and
it.
Then they
the
do
whole
it this
next
week, and it was great.
Works because you can't afford to have Guelphy in the midfield. No. He's not strong enough.
It worked perfectly, and it's why didn't they just do that the week before?
And
would have been a much better decision. But that's, swings around about.
On the adverse...
we just got proven right very quickly.
Was watching the Carlton game. Chincotta was tagging...
He tagged Vostone.
He did for a little bit, and then he quickly moved off to Baker and Bolton.
Yeah.
And when one of them was in the midfield, he just went straight to the other one.
Yep.
And just let them go to the midfield and then
And that would
curve
be a
their
great way
influence
for
forward.
Tom Stewart to get away from that, and they just didn't.
It just doesn't make sense. There's an inability or not inability. People don't want to send their taggers that are doing defensive roles in the D50, forward 50 to the midfield.
Because they want to
they
keep
can
their
get
midfield
carved
in the
up.
midfield. Yeah.
And that's why you would see players running from forward 50 to hit tags now. So
Like how who was it who tagged? It was earlier in the year. Oh, Bolton for when Richmond were playing Melbourne. He didn't tag Petrarca until he left the middle.
Yeah.
Like he was
Yeah,
playing on
Pickett?
the wing. Yeah, Pickett. Sorry.
Yeah.
He waited till Petrarca
Yeah.
left the midfield, playing on the wing, and then just swapped with
Yeah.
the midfielder and followed him forward.
yeah,
It's basically that, but more expanded.
yeah, and it's
tagging's been really creative this year, and I actually really enjoyed
it's made previewing. I was texting you about Carlton GWS earlier, and it makes it so much more interesting when you're discussing who's
who
going
does
to match up
Bedford
on
go
who.
to?
It's not as fun when it's like, yes, very clearly that Jack Buckley is likely going to play on Charlie Curnow. There's not much to discuss there, but when you're talking about tagging, and like the littler tags, like Lockie Cowan's been doing miniature tags as well from the defence. So
The one I thought was really interesting was, like, we talked about it last week, was the Atkins to Merritt tag, because last year he kept him to nothing.
Yeah.
In the first half, it looked like it was going to blow out until Merritt showboated in Atkins' face, and then Atkins locked in, and it was like, why were you doing that all game? That was your job. But
Merritt's had a couple of moments like that recently,
he
where
really-
he's flown the flag in the wrong moment and it's just blown up in his
yeah, 'cause
face.
he
So
barely did anything in the second half. Atkins got on top of him completely.
it was the same
and he is a good matchup for him.
2 weeks prior. Anyway,
Yeah. So
nothing against Merritt. He's been fantastic this year and will be right up there with a Brownlow chance as long as he doesn't give away any more fines.
he's got one.
He's got one left.
We've seen Dusty and Fife get away with the last fine of the year.
Dusty and Fife might be in a different calibre.
I agree about it. I mean, we've seen them get away with the last fine of the year because they were a chance of winning a Brownlow.
Yeah,
So
I know.
it wouldn't be the first time it's happened. But yeah, I mean, Merritt is, in a lot of ways, their barometer. Like, when he's playing well, they are at their best. And when he's not, they're not. And we saw that in one game the other night. Like, Caldwell was good all game. But at the end of the game, he was the only person doing it. Whereas when Merritt's up, they're all up. And I think that's super important to them. And you don't want that necessarily as a team. You want to have more players who can do that. But he is that currently.
They've got a lot to figure out over the next maybe year or two.
Yeah.
Like, there's every chance they can make finals and potentially even win one, but they've got a lot of growing in that midfield group, I think.
Well, I think it's like the draw put them in this position. We've talked about that, where people got very excited and ahead of themselves. But before the season started, Brad Scott was very open
He
about
said it
the
was an
fact that
8-year plan.
they are a rebuilding list, and they are not expecting.
They're one of the oldest rebuilding lists
Yes.
I've seen.
They are, but that was, I'm just saying, that was his words pre-season. He said they are obviously still hoping to, but not expecting to challenge in finals this year. And they're probably going to end up in that 7 to 12 bracket.
Unfortunately,
and that was
the media doesn't work in that
No.
way because they have earmarked them for a prelim now.
yes.
And if they were to miss finals, it would become catastrophic when really it is just
It's just where they
at.
were, and like.
It's not a bad thing to
No.
to the person I know who's listening, who is an Essendon supporter.
Yeah, it's just where they were expected to be, and where even their coach expected them to be pre-season.
Yeah.
There's players we've seen flashes of what Nate Caddy's going to be, and we know what he's like. If he comes on like
There's
he should,
players they still need to figure out.
very
Like,
good.
like Perkins can run through the midfield,
Hobbs
and then
is having
sometimes
Hobbs is having a very down year.
What is Nick Cox?
Perkins' best is phenomenal, and he was a negative player rating game on the weekend.
Yeah.
So the pieces are there, and they're figuring it out.
I think the two ruckman thing doesn't work.
I totally
think
agree
I've
with
just swung on
Where-
that doesn't work for any
Yeah,
club.
we haven't talked about this much on the show at all, but tall ball's not working, and teams who keep doing it, it fails every single time.
2 keys, a medium forward, 1 ruck.
Yeah,
Do it.
like we've seen Geelong fail at it desperately. The Bulldogs tried to do it against North on the weekend and almost lost to North.
I
We've
think
seen Brisbane fail at it. We've seen Melbourne fail at it. Just stop playing a way too tall team.
I think genuinely Carlton got smacked by as much as they did by Sydney because they played Pitnet and
Yeah.
DeConning. Just one of them, and
like,
the
I
outcome would
just
have been
don't
not
think you
a
can do
win,
it.
but it would have been less.
Yeah, I
The only team it seems to work for is Fremantle, who don't have key tools.
Yes.
They've got Luke Jackson and why have I forgotten his name? Sean Darcy. And then they've got on the smaller side of their keys, they've got Tracy and they've got Amos. Like it's a different
and
setup.
even down back like Chapman and Ryan and
Yeah,
a lot of the
mobile.
pairings aren't very lumbering.
And I think
tall.
that's why the 2 ruckmen can work there.
Yes.
But you don't want to be
and
playing
Jackson's
it with someone
so
like...
agile. Like, you don't want Ruckman doing
No.
that job. Like, Brisbane with Fort and McInerney. Like, those
are some of the darkest times.
way too lumbering to be doing that stuff. Like, you need an agile tool that works well. But even then, like, if it gets wet suddenly,
Yeah.
even the agile tools aren't as good as the smalls.
And if
it's a long way
your
to the
tool's
ground.
not in those chains, because we all know defensive chains are the key now.
Yep.
If the tall ruckman or the lumbering one can't get involved in that, it's a wasted player.
And like, despite the fact that all the stats say Pitto's doing well, except for the ones that say how to Carlton go when he's playing, you often lament his marking ability around the ground.
I certainly do.
Like, the key thing that your Jerrys and your Gorns and your Grundys do is they get on the wing, and that second kick out of defence, they take a contested mark.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge key to how teams are playing football.
Yeah.
It's what your ruckman needs to be doing more than anything else currently.
I mean,
A lot
of
and like
people have
Darcy
been
and
saying-
Jackson are both capable of that.
a lot of people are saying that Campbell and Rowan Marshall are working together, but it's only working currently because Marshall's
Well,
kicking
they
goals.
subbed off Campbell at half time, so it's they were.
And then they played Max King with a PCL in the ruck.
Yeah.
So
Well, the other decision in that game that was mind-boggling to me was that, like, Port's, like, way out of St Kilda's stranglehold was clearly to get it to almost 50 and use your Farrells and your Houstons and your big kicks to just fucking get it in there.
bang it in.
And then they subbed off Marshall at half-time. Like, you have taken away one of your get-it-in-there targets in a game you are in control of, and then they started trying to get it in there, and St Kilda were clearing it. I was like, of course they... It was a weird call, and Ken Hinkley got
like
through
there's
on a
been-
win when he almost lost them the game with a bizarre decision.
I feel like there's been some strange subs lately. That Powell one a
yeah.
couple of weeks ago was awful.
It's... Maybe we
it's-
should take away the sub just because coaches don't know what to do with it.
Well, the votes are in, and
Yeah, we're going to
five
get a
on the
5-man
bench.
bench, and then in 5 years' time we'll have 5 and a sub, and then in 10 years' time we'll
Nah.
have 6, and then in 15 years' time we'll have 6 and a sub.
I think the AFL should write a hard-coded rule, like something that can't be overruled. That is, this is 5, that is it.
Yeah.
Because
we'll see.
as much as I love the tactical sub, how good would it be if you just had a 5th player?
Yeah.
Like, it would be strategically. You could probably run your second ruck. Mm-hmm. So
Players
I don't
get
know,
more rest, which is what
Yeah.
the AFL doesn't want.
which is stupid.
Because they believe that if you're tired, the game's more open. That's
No,
their
it just
belief.
means that clubs seek endurance players.
And we don't get footballers, we get athletes.
Yeah. Anyway,
We've done this before.
Yeah,
Or you get
fucking-
Errol Gordon being a mad bastard and being like, I am going to run all day. And the horse being like, no, you're not, Errol. You're taking a rest. He's like, I'm running. Anyway,
If Amadi's taking a rest, you're taking a rest.
10 minutes at the end of the quarter. Jeez, I'd collapse without Gordon in 10 minutes. Yeah. I like, it's crazy that you don't think about the players that do it. And this kind of refers to a conversation we're having about kicking efficiency earlier today. But the players who you often think have the best kicks have some of the worst kicking efficiency and turnovers. And I think it's because they try and bite off
More than they can shoot.
phenomenal kicks. Like, Gordon has the most turnovers in the comp. And I think of Gordon as very clean.
I think the ones that have the better efficiency are the ones who get it 10 times a game, and their goal, their aim is just to kick it to someone from
Or
that
your out
defensive
the back
50.
player. Like, that's very different.
Um,
But yeah, for midfielders, like the ones who we often think of as the best kicks aren't necessarily. Dacos has one of the higher ones for a mid.
Yeah.
Merritt does, but like most of
Merritt's the one I think of.
them don't. Like your Tarantos don't, your Walshes don't.
Taranto's definitely do not.
We know about that. But like Walsh has been one of the most impactful players in the comp since he's come back, and his kicking efficiency is sub 50. Mostly because of his my favourites, like all the old left shoulder hook he does out of a pack when he just
He's been doing less of that lately.
It did a little bit, yeah. But that doesn't help. But yeah, I just think when you're trying to bite off freakish kicks, your kicking efficiency is going to drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Stats lie. That's the basis of that.
Yep.
Often. Yeah.
And I am trying my best not to get into arguments with people online about that.
Yeah, that's what I was posting.
You're rubbing off on me, and I don't like it.
I just made a post the other day, and I was like,
yourself.
we're not, from the Back Pocket account, I was like, we're not Bulldogs fans, but like, if you don't think Bontempelli is the
Yep.
best player in the comp, you're wrong.
Well, thankfully, player ratings back him now.
And then someone came in and they were like, oh yeah, but Lockie Neal's won 2 Brownlows, and that's because his kicking efficiency is better. And I was like, kicking efficiency is the most overrated stat in football. And they went back and found one time I'd lambasted a player, and it was Zach Toohey, who's in the team for his kicking, for going at 30%, and it was the only time I'd mentioned it on the account. And they're like, I thought it was irrelevant. I said, 1,
It's
overrated. 2, Very different.
It's crazy to think that you look at a Brownlow and think, yes, he won 2 Brownlows for his efficient kicking, when Tom Mitchell just won a Brownlow, Matt Priddis has won a Brownlow, Patrick Cripps won a Brownlow.
When he was a handball man.
Who else am I thinking of? There's another one in my brain.
Dangerfield won a Brownlow.
God, that motherfucker couldn't hit a target if he tried.
No. I mean, but like, almost the archetype for a Brownlow is someone who, as soon as they try and kick more than 30 metres, has no idea where it's going.
Yeah.
Like, most of those players are like that.
Yeah, the inside mid is the king of the Brownlow now.
Yeah.
And inside mids, generally, can't kick. The start of the year, we both picked Tom Green as our pick for the Brownlow, and he was in great form to the start of the year. Can he kick? No.
As soon as he did that ankle, just haven't been the same. Like, he's been good in paces, just hasn't been the same. I always done it. And our call for Brisbane is slowly looking more and more likely.
I think we both said GWS, man.
Yeah, we also we're heavy on Brisbane.
I said Brisbane last year.
And we're heavy on the Sydney Rise this year. We called that one.
I said Brisbane last year.
I found our screenshots when we were chatting about that.
I don't like screenshots.
But yeah,
exist.
Brisbane
Don't
last
quote
year.
me.
I just expected them to be good again this year.
Brisbane?
They are good now.
Look,
I expected them
when
to
you
start
get
better.
when you get 6 ACLs in a season, it's going to affect you.
Yeah.
Injuries take a toll. Injuries have hampered Collingwood from being probably a top 2 side right now. No injuries has helped Sydney establish a 2-game lead.
Yep.
So it makes a huge difference, and teams that can weather that injury storm, like Brisbane did, like Carlton have done, should probably go deep in September because of that. But
Carlton were, in some ways, lucky and unlucky that many of those injuries were in the same spots, so they've still had a very similar core for most of the year. I think they've used the 3rd least players. Sydney have used the least. I think it's Sydney, can't remember who's second, but Carlton.
Yeah.
I was looking at that the other day. Obviously, Richmond's used the most. It's insane.
yeah,
But yeah, I think they obviously they were missing some very key players at the start, but I think because a lot of them were in those similar positions, they were rotating the similar kind of players in and out of those spots, which helped maintain a lot of that core, which, as we know, is so important in a flag year to have like a really strong group playing football together a lot.
it does really feel just like the smaller and mid defenders and the smaller and mid forwards that have been rotated now that you think about it, and then just whoever is injured out of Chera and Kennedy.
Yeah. So I was surprised by it when that was
that's a stat I wouldn't have expected, considering
and then, like,
every week you would see that list pop up and Richmond and Carlton had like 10,000 days worth of fucking experience missing or something.
And then Sydney just started doing it for fun. They were like, we're just going to rest some players. Have a debut for fun.
Must be nice.
So they're cruising. Well, they still 2 games clear on top.
2, yeah.
Crazy. But they've got harder matchups coming up.
Yeah. I've not been eyeing it off.
Yeah, it's too... I said to you, Comics, you told me shut up. I was like, it's still feasible Carlton finish top.
It's not.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm enjoying it. This season's very close.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's good to have so many games that matter from here on out.
Yeah. And I will watch the first 5 games of football this week, and then I'll tune out.
Maybe Sunday afternoon.
Am I doing? No, I think Saturday is my busy day when all the good football's on, and then
I've got a double on Saturday. I'm working double shift. So I'm missing all
you
of
getting a
that.
new laptop for that, or?
Yeah. I'm swapping it over. That's what I do at the double. Yeah, that's rip. That was funny. So if you were trying to check waffle stats on the weekend, and you opened up roughly 10 minutes into the East Fremantle game against, who they play, Claremont, and you went, why does no one have more than 5 kicks? That was because the first 7.5 minutes didn't get recorded until after the game. So that was fun. That was not stressful at all.
Maybe you shouldn't swing your laptop around so violently.
Look, man, there's bad vibes at Steel Blue Oval, and they broke my laptop bag. That's all. I don't like that place. It's cursed. I got dropped for a grand final there. The members are so loud.
I
it's
have
not good.
only good memories
Bad
of Steel
juju.
Blue Oval.
I kicked that one awesome goal from the pocket there when we were pissing about after the East Fremantle Swan District's preliminary final. That's my only good memory of that ground
Even I kicked a long
in
one
my
that day.
life.
I'm terrible at kicking.
Maybe that's why so many Swan District players get drafted. It's just like got magic juju on the ground.
I don't like you.
Like even like Lawson Humphreys out of nowhere, Broady
True.
players deluxe for Swan Districts.
Yeah, and
Yarra?
there's also some.
Garlett,
And there's also some
Garlett?
misses. Yeah, there's some misses.
Noddy,
Yeah.
Nat Nui, that's gone. Don't think it mattered where he was playing.
Nah.
Freak of nature athlete like that.
Absolutely
You're getting
freak
picked
of
up wherever
nature.
you're from. Yeah. Anyway, that's probably enough podcast.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah, do you reckon we'll just post it like, we won't edit it, just put it up?
If you could do that, that'd be cool.
I wish I could. I would listen to it the next day, but what have I done? For like 3 listeners. Anyway, you can find us at the Back Pocket
Is that
AU.
anything different to how many listeners we normally have?
No. You can find us at the Back Pocket AU everywhere. Everywhere. Backpocketau.com, not .au. Every socials is Backpocket. Well, we don't have the .au. We don't own it.
Oh, okay.
We don't have an ABN for that, which I do have, but it's just too hard.
Yeah, and that's more tax.
It's more... well...
You'd have to earn money.
Have to earn money. Anyway,
I'm standing up. It's over.
Thanks for listening again, and we'll see you next week.
I think I punched the mic.
Oh no.